Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who live in New York but love the Cubs nonetheless. I'm one of them. I'm Adam Mamawala, and I'm here with the other one. What's up, man?
Hey, I'm the other one. I'm Kevin McCaffrey here to talk about the Cubs in such a talky time. So many things to talk about this week.
I mean, we've got more to talk about now than we did a month ago, so that's something.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, we're recording this on Tuesday. Who the hell knows what date it is? But
right.
A week from Friday, the Cubs are supposed to start playing baseball. So,
yeah, it is weird that this is our penultimate podcast when it comes to doing one without the season actually existing in theory. So it's like I think I've just reached the point where. I mean, it's weird that we're 10 days from the season and we're not even really talking about what the 30-man roster is going to be too much, you know? Like, because that's actual baseball talk we could do. But I think...
I was just going to say, theoretically, like next week's episode will be a preview of the season, but everything feels so conditional that it almost like... it just doesn't feel the same as if we were recording this, in late March before a season began in ordinary circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've just reached the tipping point where I'm like, all right, well, let's see if the season happens. Then I'll talk, I mean, we'll talk anyway. We're not holding a podcast listener hostage, but hey, listener, start the season and then I'll do a podcast. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right to me. We will be tweeting intermittently at Away Games Pod, and I can tell you for sure that if the season does actually begin, we will probably be tweeting a lot during games. I don't know. I think I will. I'll be able to watch more baseball than I've ever really been able to watch. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly don't know what would keep me from doing it at this point. Exclusively the actual game watching.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think of where to start. I mean, there've been a couple Cubs stories this week. One involving Chris Bryant. Do you want to tell the people about that who maybe didn't read up about that?
Yeah, I mean, right. It's not like it's not a story in that anything really happened. But Chris Bryant had said that he hoped, given everything that's happening around this weird season, he said, I would hope the team wouldn't trade me in the middle of a pandemic, and I think that's a reasonable request from one of the best players in the league and homegrown superstar. But Theo came out and was talking about it, and I kind of understand why he couldn't really come out and say, oh yeah, we definitely won't. But he kind of didn't say that they wouldn't. He came out and said, it's a tough time. Chris was speaking as a human being, which Chris, I think, tends to speak as a human being since he is one. So he was. But Theo was saying, ultimately it is a business. We're definitely still going to be releasing players. We're going to be, dealing with options and, eventually trading somebody is not off the table either. So, it's like, I don't think it would be almost impossible to see how trading Chris Bryant would make sense. Any big trade in this season, when you don't know that the season's even actually going to finish out, you don't know what next season's going to look like. It just seems like it's an impossible time to line up value, for a trade. So I don't think it's likely, but Theo did not shoot it down.
Yeah, it seems, I mean, especially, I guess the difference here is that that you'd at least be getting another full season of Chris Bryant, theoretically, but I definitely think any sort of trade like the Cubs did for Aroldis Chapman or that sort of thing, you're just not going to see that this year, because why would you ship off some of your best prospects for a season that may not be played to completion? Right.
Yeah. No, I think that... that makes sense. So that came out. That was one thing. There's not too much more to say about that, I don't think. The Cubs have started, I think, and this is what we talked about when they originally announced 50 of the possible 60 roster spots. We anticipated that number would slowly creep up. they were waiting to see the first round of releases and players being waived to see if there was anyone they wanted to pick up and put on that roster. But this week they've started to fill out the South Bend roster with pretty much all pitchers. Corey Abbott, Tyson Miller, Jack Patterson, were all added to that list. Keegan Thompson as well. Were all added to the South Bend roster, which are all like pitchers who, these are, except for the case of Jack Patterson, these are guys who are like, pitchers drafted in the top 5 rounds, pitchers that the Cubs have serious plans for. Mm-hmm. And Jack Patterson is a lefty who was dominant last year, and really over for a lot of the last 2 years. So he is a guy you could see coming up and being sort of like, even though you still have the 3-batter rule, a possible lefty reliever you'd see. And Justin Steele, also friend of the show, Justin Steele was also added to that roster.
And I don't know if you saw, because you tweeted it initially, and then we had kind of a fun exchange with Justin where we had asked him what he was like as a hitter, and he was, he was pretty confident about his hitting ability, and we tweeted at him.
He gave us exit velos.
Yeah, he had the TrackMan info for us, but he did say that if he hits a home run, he's willing to DH. Basically, is what he told us, and I'd love to see it.
Yes,
let's get weird.
Let's get weird. He said if he hits a homer, he's pimping it, obviously, which is great. So yeah, it's fun. And Justin Steele, he got the good news that he was getting called up to South Bend, and which is great news. But then he had to start his hard quarantine, I think, on his birthday. So it was his 25th birthday, and he was like, well, I guess I'm just chilling, watching UFC tonight by myself. Happy birthday! But it's it's for good.
Although I have to say, as a couple comedians who have worked the road, it's very relatable to spend your birthday alone in a hotel room.
Oh my God, I've had milestone birthdays in places where nobody was. I turned 30 in North Fork, Nebraska, at the Great American Comedy Festival, and I just remember being like, "This is bleak." It's like nothing against the place. It was a really good festival, and I met some fun comics there. And there's a couple comedians named Amber Preston and Ryan Dalton who were also in the festival. And Sashir Zameda all went out and got me a birthday cake. But it was like a weird, you're in a weird place where you can't really afford to make your birthday a special day. It's like, well, I'm just doing the job. And at least Steele was on his way hopefully to getting some major league time, even if not this year. He'll be in the conversation going into next.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what was your take on the whole Alzolay tweeting situation? I assume you saw that, kind of just talking about how bad the conditions were in terms of like what they were expecting of these guys in South Bend, which is not surprising when you know anything about how minor league baseball works. But what was your take on that?
Yeah, I think this is an area where the Cubs have started very slowly moving a little bit towards, borderline humane, employment practices.
Right.
Like the Blue Jays have done the best job in terms of paying bumping minor league pay.
It makes sense that a team from Canada would be better than us in terms of treating people right.
Exactly. They probably also get health care, which is cool. But yeah, Alzolay, fill in any details I'm missing here, but he was tweeting about how I think he was saying they get $18 a day, and that they also have to, they're tipping the clubby there on the way out every day too. And Alzolay is not, I don't think he was complaining about the fact that he had to tip the guy. The point was that the tip comes out of the $18 a day they're getting in a year when we've canceled the minor leagues across the board otherwise,
right,
too. So, and like he posted that he had just had to go buy his own TV. Now, I did read in The Athletic that now in South Bend, each room has a television, which ooh, we're approaching Days Inn level of of luxury for these people who might be in the major leagues in 2 weeks. And when it was brought up to Theo, and Alzolay eventually deleted all the tweets after I think he had a conversation with management. But what Theo said was, his facts weren't exactly right there, which to me is like, Theo, come on, be a little real about this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, his facts weren't right, then tell me how many dollars he was off by. And, in saying that, it's going to be embarrassing if you were actually honest. Like, even if it's not $18, if he's like, well, technically, we also give you an $8 parking credit. So really, we're talking more $26 a day. The per diem I've seen now has been bumped up to $50 per day once the season starts, but it's $25 a day right now.
Yeah. You broke up a little bit on that, so it sounded like you were drunkenly saying $25, but that's okay.
It's a goof. We've heard about players in the minor leagues at Olive Garden. I mean, yeah, So I mean, my opinion on it is just it's absurd that teams can get away with this kind of thing, and it's what they get away with minor leaguers all the time.
Right, and also, as you know, I don't know that we talk about it enough considering what our actual theoretical jobs are, but like also kind of relatable as comedians in terms of like doing these things where you're like, am I even breaking even on this? Like, what is going on here?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And being paid in exposure, and like, oh well, if you don't do it, somebody else will do it.
Right, being paid in exposure, and just like the level of. It's weird because at least with comedy clubs in our world, each club is, for the most part, except for a couple exceptions that are larger chains, are individually owned businesses. So there's no like standard of practice really across the board. But then you'll get situations like when I worked the Comedy Zone in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, sick brag, I headlined. And they had a drink on the menu named after me the week I was there. It was the McCaffrey Margarita. And when the manager came around to ask, he's like, can I get you anything to drink? I was like, yeah, I'll take the me. And then he goes, cool, so that'll be $8. And I was like, hold on. You're charging me for a drink that you put my name on? No, absolutely fucking not. You insane grifter, and that is basically, I mean, that's what Major League Baseball does with these minor leaguers in general.
And similarly, you're going to tip the waitstaff because it's not their fault that the club owner's an asshole.
Of course, yes, you're tipping the waitstaff, you're tipping whoever serves you, and you're tipping the bartender every time. Now, just to be clear, was it $8 on the menu, or did he feel he was doing you a service by giving you a discount from the ordinary $16 price of the McCaffrey Margarita? Whatever it was, and I think it probably was more than $8, but I was not getting a break on that.
Unbelievable.
I was headlining, sold out 3 of the 4 shows that weekend, and then after that person, I was like, all right, I'm making a mixed drink in my room and walking into the club with it. So I just did that every night from there. But I'm a minor leaguer is what I'm saying, Adam, so.
And isn't walking into a club with an already mixed drink the real McCaffrey Margarita when you think about it?
It really kind of is. It doesn't matter whether it's a margarita or not. You want the authentic McCaffrey.
That is the signature drink.
Absolutely, yeah. Make it in the room, walk in, take it back to the room after.
Oh, man. So there's one other, well, I guess it's fun now because he's not hurt, but one other kind of fun note. First of all, Anthony Rizzo sitting in the bleachers. You got to love that.
Great stuff. Great video. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
That is kind of like, it is a little dystopian looking, but it is kind of cool to see these guys playing in a empty Wrigley. Like there's something kind of eerie and interesting about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's like a fun, the visuals are fun and like will be good for the time capsule, Yeah.
I don't know why the hell they're not televising scrimmages. I assume it's because Marquee sucks, but like, wouldn't you watch every minute of that?
Absolutely. The only reason I can think is if the Cubs themselves don't want to broadcast for like scouting purposes or something, but like for other teams being able to scout them. But I don't think. I don't know. It just seemed. You're right. It does just seem like a missed opportunity. Like, put it on because Marquee exists right now, even if they still don't have the deal with Comcast. You know, it's still going. I really don't know why they aren't broadcasting this.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I've just been, and I'm sure you have too, like kind of scouring Twitter to see random like videos from tweets, but I would certainly be spending a couple hours watching, and just because even that's unique in and of itself. Not only do I miss baseball, but just like seeing, Javi taking a bat against Kyle Hendricks is interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think David Ross was talking about, struggling with how to root, which we talked about the other day. Like Schwarber took Alec Mills deep, I think, and David Ross was like going nuts about Schwarber hitting a bomb, but also is like, oh, but I'm not rooting against Alec Mills, like the probable fifth starter. It's just fun to see our guys play our guys. It's a thing where you get to be, so in some way, happy no matter what happens. Would be cool to see, and hopefully we're actually watching stuff in 10 days or whatever.
Right. And to make it extra dystopian, there was a cool video of David Ross the other day after the scrimmage was over, just playing fetch with his dog in the outfield. And I don't know if you saw that, but seeing the video and where he was standing, I was like, I have this very vivid memory of watching Ross long toss and then warm up Lester before Game 5 of the World Series, and thinking about how packed it was and what the energy was like there, and then watching him just by himself in that exact spot with his dog. It's like, this is fully I Am Legend for baseball.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's just like a public park. It's like the Fallout video game, where it's like in the post-apocalyptic world, there's people just started a community in Fenway Park. It's very strange to see, and it's like one day it'll be cool, interesting art to look at. These images when hopefully we're back to normal. Which, by the way, Taiwan handled Corona so well that they have packed stadiums now and are safe because they did it right. So that's good for Taiwan.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? So the last thing that I had, unless you had anything, was so Albert Almora. There's no video of the play itself, but he apparently went all out to track down a Chris Bryant. I guess it ended up being a double or a triple, but slammed into the wall, and it was kind of a scary moment where he's laying on the warning track and has apparently injured himself, and then before you know it, he's taking an at bat the next inning. So he ended up being fine, but it got me thinking of I'm not comparing myself to a professional athlete, but I've always been someone who I'm competitive and I don't know how to turn it off. So I go 100% even when it's not called for. I wanted to ask you, do you have any memories of injuring yourself or doing something stupid where you realize in retrospect, I didn't need to be putting that much effort in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm in better shape now, but when in the late aughts, 2008, 2008, 2009 era, I had a regular basketball game I played in Tompkins Square Park that I joined up with, and it was a bunch of people who were TV writers and journalists made up this game basically.
Right.
And I used to be at one time pretty good at basketball. I played in school and stuff, on school teams, and so I feel like I automatically, as you're saying, have that output where I don't know how to not go 100, but I was fat and I wasn't the athlete I was. So every time I'd play in that park game 1 to 11, I've got 9 of the points, I'm dominating, and the other 2 points are assists. Our team's winning every time. Game 2, I'm barfing. I had no stamina whatsoever. Every time I would dominate game 1, and then we'd play 5 games, and by game 4, I'm just sitting out every time. So yeah. I think it was a consistent thing where the fat version of Kev could not. I could not. My mentality never changed from the guy who was fit. So yeah, that. Do you have an instance of going too hard?
Oh, all the time. I mean, I literally right now, since I've been in New Jersey, I was playing tennis, and I played 5 or 6 times in 1 week, 2 hours every time, as if I was still in high school. And now I have tennis elbow, which is essentially a condition where it feels like someone is jamming a needle into the outside of your elbow. It's horrific. To the point where it's painful to brush my teeth because I just am an idiot.
Jesus. Tennis elbow in quarantine is a hell of an accomplishment. I guess the other time I can think of on my end is I playing flag football with a bunch of old Letterman friends. Flag football. I collided heads with a guy and our heads busted open and we had to go to the emergency room. And my friend Greg, I just remember on the form under reason for visit, He wrote bad at football. So which I thought was the perfect explanation for what brought us there.
Yeah, I've done any number of things. I mean, I broke my toe, or like almost broke my toe, trying to dive for a volleyball in like a beach volleyball game. Just things that there's really no reason to. And that's why, to your point, anytime, because there's a lot of games in New York ordinarily that involve comedians where it's like comics playing flag football or, playing basketball. And it's always a bunch of people who are in their 30s trying to act like they're still in high school. Our buddy John Alzolay in a football game, I think he like literally broke his back.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, he wasn't paralyzed, but like it was a serious injury. So you see, people are getting teeth knocked out, and it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, what is really what is at stake?
Right, and I guess this is the Almora of it all, where Almora doesn't need to be going into the ivy and brick wall in spring training part 2,
Right.
But I also think that's part of the guy Almora is he. I mean, last year was the first year he actually didn't grade out well defensively. But last year, as we know, he was just kind of lost overall. But Almora does go all out all the time. And he's a little showy defensively too. He's definitely big on the sliding catch above replacement level. Like if he can make it look good, he's going to.
Not quite Jim Edmonds, but he does like to show off a bit.
Exactly. But I think Al is just one of those guys where I think if he wants to stay in the game, he's one of the Cubs you would think is a possible future manager. You hear about what a good teammate he is, how hard he goes all the time. And he's not like, by baseball standards, a premium athlete, certainly not a premium athlete by center field standards, He's in terms of just like flat speed and quick twitch athleticism. But, it's like you can tell how badly he wants to get this year back and get his career back on track. So it's nice to see that he's not actually hurt,
Yeah, and much like Javi or even Griffey, I don't know if you watched that documentary, it's like there are a lot of guys who they can only really play 100%. Like they're probably more likely to get injured if they try to play at 70%.
Absolutely. And that's part of the thing too. That's where it's like that trying to hold back can get you more injured too. So there's just no real safe way to do it, which in a season that's so unsafe anyway, makes you feel like, all right, well, I guess let's just start, if we're going to do it, you might as well start making the games count,
Right. Oh, and we also have to recognize Almora for truly a Hall of Fame level tweet. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I do. Go ahead.
So somebody, I don't know if it's ESPN or some reporter or somebody tweeted, describe your favorite sports memory in the most boring way possible. And Almora retweeted it, and I believe his caption was, I tagged up and scored.
Yes. Yes. Tagged up and scored. The greatest, arguably the most important tag up to second base in Major League history.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a lot of other ones off the top of my head anyway, but I mean, as we've said many times, it sets up the whole inning. Rizzo doesn't get walked intentionally if that doesn't happen, and then, who knows?
Right. So good job. Glad Albert's healthy. Congrats on the perfect tweet. Good stuff. But yeah, that's all I have.
Sweet. Well, follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram, awaygamespodcast@gmail.com. Throw us a nice rating on iTunes if you can. Follow Kevin and myself on social media. What else you got?
Yeah, and just, next week, it's going to be a couple days from the beginning of the season, supposedly. So next week, we will talk rosters. We will talk season preview next week. It will be a serious podcast next week, God willing, as long as the season is still okay and moving forward, which who knows. But if so, we're going to have a real baseball podcast next week, and that'll be nice.
That will be very nice. But until then, have a good week, everybody. Stay safe, and we will talk to you then.